If you want to make a lot of money when it comes to the reefer business, you got to really understand the factors that impact reefer freight rates this year, because those factors can really make a big difference when it comes to your revenue every single month. Okay, so here is an overview I want you to pay attention to. The thing is that when it comes to reefer rates, you have a variety of factors to really think about. And I'm not just talking about the economy. I'm not speaking about regulations. I'm speaking about the shipper rates also. But most importantly, what's happening when it comes to the dispatchers, but also the freight brokers. Because the whole thing is that you are able to get a lot of cash, but you have to understand that some of that cash will be split depending on the number of middlemen, quote unquote middlemen, that actually make sure that you're getting the load. Now, if you are getting your load directly from the shipper, then you don't have to actually split any revenue. But if you have to go through a dispatcher or go through a freight broker, then your freight rate will actually will be adjusted. Let me call it that way. Okay, so reefer load rates are generally higher than those of dry vans because temperature controlled trailers are more expensive to run and maintain. That's really, and that has been the practice for the last 20 years, 20 to 25 years, especially with reefer rates going to Canada and Mexico. You have more revenue coming into the industry. And even during COVID, I mean, rates went actually shot up during COVID, so that was really good for a lot of reefer drivers. Okay, so the cost of reefer transport can vary greatly depending on your location, the cargo you need to ship, and many other factors. Depending on what kind of carrier, what kind of shippers, what kind of like if you have a fleet or you are just a solo driver also. Okay, and but one thing for sure, if you think about national reefer rates, you are looking at an average of 2.39, so $2.39, all the way to $2.75. So 2.39 to 2.75. So that's actually the national range for reefer rates. But just keep in mind that reefer rates vary by region. Okay, so basically, reefer load rates are currently highest in the West, so 275, 253 to $275 per mile, and lowest in the Southeast, where they are around 211 to $2.11, all the way to $2.25. So you can see the delta there. So let me talk to you now about the factors here. So if you think about the factors that impact reefer freight rates this year, the first such factor is the delivery distance. So the delivery distance will impact your reefer rate a lot. So if you're trying to really make at least 100 grand a year, or even at least 100 grand a year with your reefer, you have to really pay attention to the delivery distance. So obviously, the longer the distance, the more you have to earn, right? It's that makes sense. So it's all about the distance. It's all about the geography too. In other words, the mileage that you have to really account for. So no matter what you're shipping, the distance you ship cargo always impacts the rates you will be charged. This is especially true for reefer truck rates. So if you are a driver, reefer driver, you will love that. Okay, not only are loads often temperature sensitive, but they might also be time sensitive. So that's why reefer drivers are charging consequently. So the greater the distance goods need to travel and the smaller the time window, the more the carrier must charge. And that makes sense. Okay. This is where determining refrigerated shipping rates starts. Okay. So you are looking at the thing I told you before, 211 all the way to 275. So the delivery distance is number one, the freight weight and density. So basically, carriers price reefer loads based on two physical traits. So if you are a carrier right now, you are an owner operator. I want you to really price your loads based on two physical traits: the actual weight of the shipment and how much space products occupy in the trailer. So weight is simple, right? The higher the weight, the higher the cost, just as with any other form of shipping. The reason heavier shipments cost more is that the more your refrigerated shipment weighs, the more fuel it takes to truck it from place to place. So as a carrier, you need to factor this into the cost of moving freight. Otherwise, you'll be working for free. Okay. So, but as a carrier, you also need to factor in the density of your load, which is how much room freight takes up in a refrigerated trailer. So a reefer trailer has a limited amount of space. So even if you only have a few very light packet of produce, the cost will be higher if they take up twice the space of other produce or reefer goods. Okay, so it's one of those things where you want to think. For instance, think of shipping a pallet of potatoes versus a pallet of romaine lettuce. Okay, the lettuce will weigh a lot less, but the same weight in lettuce takes up more than twice the space of the potatoes. So the cost should be similar. So that's really important to look at it from that point of view. If you're thinking about the factors that impact freight rates for reefers this year, I want you to also think about fuel cost. I mean, in this economy, just crazy. Like fuel cost has been going crazy. I mean, if you remember a couple of years ago during COVID and the war in Ukraine, whatever, and those that the fuel costs shot up big time. But thank God they came back. They came back relatively lower. Okay, but it's one of those things where the price of the fuel itself also has a large impact on how much it costs to ship refrigerated products by truck. Okay, so it's one of those things where you have to really see the distance, you have to see the time of the year, and you have to see also the urgency of the delivery. So diesel fuel costs and their associated taxes vary from state to state and region to region. So it's something to really keep in mind. This means what? It means that the lane or area in which you need to ship will determine the price that you as a carrier pay for fuel. Okay. In general, as market fuel prices rise, so do shipping costs. As fuel prices go down, shipping costs follow. So we are in an economy right now where the industry is still looking forward to like some kind of mild increase. I mean, right now it wasn't crazy as it was a few years ago. I'm speaking about the pricing, the price surge, but it's still up anyway. Okay, the fuel still cost way more than it did before COVID. Okay, I mean, of course, you have to factor in inflation. So this is something to really think about. But overall, yes, fuel costs will always impact the freight rates for reefers. You also have regulations, and that's a biggie. Regulations play a big role when it comes to reefer freight rates. Local rules and regulations impact those load rates. And while all load types are regulated in some way, because you can't have the trucking industry without regulations, produce and other perishable goods are often subject to, let's say, additional state. Sorry about that. So I was just talking. You have you have regulations that really impact the rates. Additional you have additional state, local, and regional regulations. Okay, for example, some items cannot be shipped across state lines without an inspection certificate, and other cargo types must be shipped locally or only in certain areas. So something to really think about. Okay, and one thing I want to say also is that the Food Safety Modernization Act had also had an impact. So monitoring and maintaining refrigeration temperatures for certain freights is actually vital. As a result, many reefer units are equipped with telematics that enable both carriers and shippers to monitor and control temperatures from a distance. So something that's really important to really keep in mind. So all those things make it costly to actually to pay for the reefer loads. Also, you have another factor that really can impact your reefer freight. That's actually the produce season. So you have some kind of elements in terms of cyclicality here. Okay, so one of the biggest drivers for reefer shipping demand and price is actually the produce season. So what happens here is that depending on the geography you're speaking about, you're gonna have a certain pent up demand in that area. Okay, and when fresh produce ships in volume, particularly from agricultural areas like the Midwest and California's Central Valley, the demand for refrigerated time sensitive, shipping goes up accordingly. So you do have an element of pricing demand that really adjusts to demand and supply. So you have the dynamics of demand and supply. Okay, so this demand shifts to different areas of the country depending on the season. Usually with a lull in the winter months. Okay, so just think about activity being pent up during spring all the way to fall. Okay, and of course, growing seasons come regularly and can be predicted and planned for with some certainty. So if you are actually a reefer driver, you can make a lot of cash in the industry if you can plan those things ahead. I mean, you can say, you know what, I'll be doing other stuff during the lull winter season, and during the other three other seasons, I'll be making a lot of cash. Okay. So from time to time, other factors will also impact the reefer load rates, and this was illustrated actually by the demand fluctuations during the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, if you saw, it was crazy back then, but yeah, it was what it is. And so often, if you are a carrier, you will ship part. You might actually shift part, if not all, of your capacity to reefer loads during peak seasons, impacting dry van and other freight rates. I mean, the whole idea here is to generate revenue, right? You want to make sure that you are generating revenue in your truck anyway. So, what are the trends here? I mean, I just gave you the five factors that impact reefer freight rates, but there are some trends that you really need to be aware of. If you are a reefer driver or you have a fleet that really gets that really intervenes, that really gets into that navigates the reefer industry, you have to understand that it's a very dynamic industry. It's important for both shippers and carriers to try to predict reefer freight rates. That way, you can really think about your revenue. You can think about your revenue, and from a flexibility point of view, it also helps you adjust your cost basis. Okay, so basically, if you're a shipper, you need to be able to predict demand and rates with at least some accuracy to actually stabilize your cash flow and determine accurate shipping costs before products are ready to ship, right? And so if costs appear to be high, as a shipper, you can employ strategies to lower them, okay? And one way to do so is by balancing shipments between reefer trucks and dry vans when it is practical to do so. So it's one of those things where you have to see again. If you're a driver, you have to see what kind of industry you have to be in, and forecasting reefer rates can also enable you as a carrier to lower cost by warehousing products and timing reefer truck shipments for when demand and rates are lower. So that's kind of important. And one thing I want to say also is that you are able to predict rates and demand to make smart decisions about purchasing or leasing equipment. Understanding the current demand for a given shipping type, the potential future demand, and the likely profit margin on that shipping method can inform equipment decision and can really inform equipment decisions and help you as a carrier earn higher shipping rates. So that's important, okay? And just make sure that you are able to have the right data, the right decision making process. You can also have a load board. By the way, you can use a load board to find the best reefer rates. That's totally possible. There are a lot of load boards. We have covered load boards on this show, so I'm not going to name names. But listen, you have a lot of great load boards out there that can really help you big time when it comes to getting the best reefer rates. So let me talk to you about some extras here. So the thing is that there are three largest influencers of refrigerated shipping spot prices: the temperature your freight needs to move at, your origin and destination locations, and the time of year you are shipping reefer freights. Okay. So when I speak about the temperature your freight needs to move at, well, the thing here is that you have to understand that reefer trailers have two main cooling settings selected based on the needs of the cargo within them. And these settings are actually start, stop, and continuous cooling. So you have start, stop, and continuous cooling. And so as a brief rundown, start, stop cooling is used when a reefer's temperature needs to avoid falling out of a certain range. Let me give you an example. If cargo is sensitive to temperatures above 50 degrees, start stop will engage the cooling unit every time the reefer's internal temperature approaches this mark. So continuous cooling, on the other hand, leaves a reefer's cooling unit running nonstop from A to B. This is most commonly used for refrigerated or frozen products. So typically, there are three different temperature control services reefer carriers can offer shippers. Okay, so these are protect from freeze or heat. So cargo cannot be exposed to temperatures above a certain mark, and or it can be frozen. So you can protect from freeze heat services so that you can maintain an internal temperature of 33 degrees Fahrenheit and above. So this service uses a start-stop cooling setting. Next, you have a refrigerated or fresh. So products must be moved at a certain temperature to maintain their freshness and value. So reefer trailers used for refrigerated service hold their temperature at 34 to 36 degrees Fahrenheit, and refrigerated reefer like fresh reefer service uses the continuous cooling setting. And then you have frozen. So cargo must remain frozen throughout the duration of its transit. And this means what? It means that the reefer transporting them typically maintains a temperature of 20 to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Provided the trailer and products are properly pre-cooled, frozen shipments can use a start-stop cooling setting. So that's something to really keep in mind if you are trying to really save cost this year. Now, what the temperature your freight must maintain during its transport will dictate whether your reefer will use a start, stop, or a continuous cooling setting. And in the end, this will impact your price because continuous cooling is generally more expensive than start, stop because the reefer's cooling unit uses more fuel, a cost that's billed directly to the shipper. So that's something to really keep in mind. You also have your origin and destination locations. So basically, you are looking at supply and demand, right? So the balance between the number of refrigerated trailers in an area and the volume of goods that need one at any given time significantly impacts the price of reefer service. So origins with more loads to ship than available trucks will cost more to ship out of, and those with more trucks than loads will cost less. It's just your basic economics 101, demand and supply, okay? The destination side is actually a similar story. Locations with higher volume of outbound freight are typically cheaper to ship reefer freight to. So the third element is you have the time of year you're shipping freight, you're shipping a reefer freight. So reefer load to truck ratio within your origin and or destination locations will change depending on the time of the year. And since reefer shipping prices are, let's say, greatly influenced by supply and demand, this seasonal shift will lower and or raise the cost of securing a truck for your cargo. So something to really keep in mind this year, especially if you are trying to really you're planning to make some money when it comes to the reefer industry. So seasonal changes in load and truck volumes are not the only things impacting reefer costs, however, right? Outside temperatures also play a role here. As you can imagine, shipping protect from freeze freight from North Dakota during January is much more difficult than doing so in the spring. This increases the amount of fuel used for this shipment, raising your price. So this is something to really think about. And you do have a prominent refrigerated shipping peak seasons and locations. You have March, August across the southern U.S., June, August across the U.S., and November, December across the whole U.S. Okay, so something to really keep in mind if you are trying to really make money this year. But one thing for sure, you need to understand that some weather events can also impact reefer capacity because hey, listen, you have to drive through roads, and if the weather is really crazy, you can't really predict that, and you can't really drive also, and this could impact your shipping cost. So, in conclusion, in today's conversation, I share with you the factors that impact reefer freight rates. I give you the overview, the factors, the trends, the extras, and the conclusion. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.